Welcome back to everybody to the continuation of our GLEX 2021 Global Networking Forum program with another exciting panel organized by NASA entitled Exploring as One. This session will feature 3 NASA Associate Administrators, and you will have, as usually, the chance to engage in the discussion by using our Slido system and by asking questions and rating the questions. Let me now welcome our moderator for this session, Professor Pascal Ehrenfreund, IAF President. Pascal, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Christian. Good afternoon, and it is my pleasure to welcome you to this next panel of the Global Networking Forum, and I am delighted that we have with us this afternoon the NASA Associate Administrator for the Science Mission Directorate, Thomas Zubergen, the NASA Associate Administrator for Space Technology Mission Directorate, James Reuter, and the NASA Associate Administrator for the Human Exploration and Operation Mission Directorate, Kathy Luders. So between the 3 of them, they really represent the entire space portfolio of NASA's activities. They bring a wealth of experience and expertise and direct and manage many exciting programs and projects. So I want to briefly introduce all 3 of them. Dr. Thomas Zubergen is NASA's Associate Administrator of Science, and in that role responsible for NASA's science program, including Earth science, heliophysics, biological and physical sciences, planetary science, and astrophysics. He joins NASA in 2016. His honors include the induction as a member of the International Academy of Astronautics and NASA Outstanding Leadership Medal and the 2018 Heinrich Greinacher Prize from the University of Bern. Dr. Zubergen engages people worldwide with NASA's work and the inspiration of science. Dr. James Reuter was named NASA's Associate Administrator for the Space Technology Mission Directorate at NASA headquarters in June 2019, a position in which he served in an acting capacity since February 2017. Prior to his role, James Reuter served as the Senior Executive for Technical Integration in the Center's Director's Office at NASA Marshall Space Flight Center from 2009 to 2015, providing strategic leadership on critical technology and integration activities. He has received numerous NASA awards and honors, including a 2019 Distinguished Service Medal and several outstanding leadership medals in 2016 and 2008. Ms. Kathy Luders joined NASA and the White Sand Test Facility Propulsion Laboratory in New Mexico. She's the second woman to work in this laboratory supporting NASA's Space Shuttle program. Kathy Luders went on to manage commercial cargo resupply services to the International Space Station, facilitating the development of the Transportation Integration Office, which enabled ongoing cargo resupply to the ISS. She became the acting commercial crew program manager at Kennedy Space Center, and shortly after, the head of the office. Last year, she was elected as the first female Associate Administrator of NASA's Human Exploration and Operation Mission Directorate, managing the full human spaceflight portfolio. So we are really fortunate to have 3 NASA Associate Administrators with us today. We will have a fireside chat with all 3 of them, and then, as usual, you can engage with questions here in the room, of course, with the Slido tool, but also everybody who is online. So it is not a small feat to gather these 3 particular NASA leaders at the same place and at the same time. So on behalf of the International Astronautical Federation and also Roscosmos, who I know very much appreciates your presence, let me virtually welcome you to the Global Exploration Conference here in St. Petersburg. The topic of this afternoon's panel is Explore as One. Our community has achieved really much. We have seen, a very exciting conference, many presentations. Last year, we celebrated 20 years of continuous human presence, habitation on the International Space Station, as well also successfully launched 3 missions to Mars. We have heard about several of them here in St. Petersburg, and that all in the middle of a global pandemic. So this year, and in particular at this conference, we celebrate 60 years from the first flight of Yuri Gagarin, a defining moment for propelling humanity into the cosmos. Our conversation today will focus on how we, as a community, working together as one, will build on these accomplishments and how, together, we will write the next chapters of space exploration. So, Dr. Zubergen, Mr. Reuter, Ms. Lüders, welcome again, and now over to you.
Well, thanks so much, Dr. Ehrenfreund, and I just wanted to tell you how excited I am to see you also, and just recognize your service to the international community, and of course at various positions during your career. I also want to tell you how, of course, I'm in, as you see from the picture here, I'm in Park City, Utah, in the mountains. On the way through to another location, and just really wanted to call in here with my colleagues, Kathy and Jim, just because I deeply believe that exploring as one is one of the key themes. Not only we have to learn at NASA and practice every day, but something we have to learn as an international community and as a community that increasingly involves commercial partners at the level that is unprecedented in our history of space exploration. So what we want to do here is really give you at the beginning, the 3 perspectives that motivate why we so deeply care about it, and also then really be open for that discussion that we look forward to even now. So looking at our entire world on Earth, sometimes, especially as yesterday I drove through from Provo to Park City, I looked at this kind of beautiful valley scarred by both glacial and volcanic activities and, folding of the Rocky Mountains. And I thought, how interesting it is that you look at that mountain and it looks so peaceful, but up in the mountains, and even as you look at the rocks in your hand, it shows the violent history of our own planet. 4.543 billion years old is the planet. We think based on on the best knowledge we have, and it's a planet, of course, that is very much changed by its processes, whether it's its geology, whether it's erosion, whether it's the atmospheric forces that are there. Right next to us is that celestial neighbor, the moon, that has a shared history of us. And if you look at the moon, even with just binoculars, right? Don't even need a great telescope. You see that it shows the history, the scars of that violent history of the solar system that is there right now in a way that, frankly, the Earth does not at the same level. And of course, that is because it is not shaped by, erosion, by, the continental plates that are bumping into each other and folding mountains like the ones I saw yesterday. So for us, from the landing over 50 years ago of Apollo 11, of course, that science that relates to that celestial neighbor has been really an exciting pursuit of not only understanding its history, its dynamics, its age, and so forth, but also understanding the Earth itself, our history, where we came from, where our life comes from, as part of that shared discussion. Now, the Apollo program is a really good example of bringing with the human explorers, which of course were at the center of that exciting program, bringing with it science and of it being enabled by the technology discoveries and exploration that of course got it there. What's important to know, though, now as we kind of venture as an international community, forward to the moon, kind of together as one, it's important to recognize how these parts play together with each other and how critical they are. What's also important, and that's what's really critical for me to get across, is that the way we look at the moon today is very different than the way we looked at the moon 50 years ago. Some of the questions that were addressed and answered, of course, with the samples that were brought back that are continually being investigated, including a sample we only recently opened for the first time, those questions are entirely different. And of course, it has been mentioned in this conference and before, there are questions about, for example, a water cycle that 50 years ago we would have said, or 40 years ago we would have said is not present. Water, that of course is exciting in its own right, because water kind of is, links, of course, the kind of composition of whatever cosmic environment with kind of an important ingredient that ultimately in many other environments lead to come to life, because of course it ties together the most aggressive element, an oxygen that by itself could pretty much break up every molecule into hydrogen, the most abundant of the elements in the cosmos, and kind of make it a place at the right temperatures where this can move, where they can move and actually bring chemicals together in a way that we're only now exploring. So doing science at the moon is incredibly compelling right now because of that question, but also because of a sharpened understanding of the age of the Earth, which, by the way, we think the best measurements will be done at the moon, going back and looking at certain areas, ancient craters, where we really want an absolute measurement scale and check whether the number that I gave you is actually the right number, whether the number that I gave you actually helps us more understand the origin of our celestial neighbor, the moon, and what it's there. We also believe that in fact, the platform that the moon offers, especially away during the part of the month, so to say, where the sun, or the part of the year where the sun and the Earth are on the same side of the moon. It creates a radio quiet part of the moon that, of course, can be a platform for astrophysical observations that, frankly, we don't know where else to do right now in the vicinity around Earth. So for us, the questions are compelling. The science is exciting, and we're ready to go from the science perspective. Now, the way we're doing it is with that principle, explore as one. There are a number of questions that we can best address with human explorers on the ground. We have a report that tells us what those questions are, but anybody who's ever talked to a geologist knows that even though we have airborne observations, spaceborne observations on Earth, if you really want to get the right sample, you want the human in the loop. Why would the moon be different than decades of exploration here on Earth? We also want new technologies and new approaches. Our commercial lunar payload services program can bring experiments that Jim Reuters and his shop is developing to the surface of the moon, whether it's landing technologies, whether it's resource utilization technologies, whether it's drills, whether it's systems that will help us in a exploration phase in which human presence is a common thing on the surface of the moon. We can, with commercial partners, bring that to the surface of the moon at a cost that, frankly, is a fraction of what we would have done using previous paradigms. To close off, I want to just tell you that this theme, that exploring as one, is a theme that we're, of course, not only using at the moon, but also utilizing at Mars. And, of course, the Perseverance rover sitting there right now on the surface of this neighboring planet, with instruments, the MOXIE instrument that was funded by my two colleagues here, Kathy and Jim, that takes CO2 and makes it oxygen is a great example, together with other technologies like terrain relative navigation, but also landing technologies. We pioneered on this thing. So bots ahead of boots is our principle, trying to understand risks before we bring humans there. But we are excited to explore as one and bring, in fact, humans not only to the moon, but also to Mars when the time comes. So I'm really excited to hear about my colleagues and then enter into the discussion, Pascal.
Thank you very much, Thomas Zubergen. You really laid out, the big questions and why the moon is scientifically so compelling. It's like a window into the history of our solar system, among many other reasons. I'm coming now to Jim Reuter. And I think what we will hear from him is what we are doing to bridge the technology gaps that we have. They look at all, I think your directorate is looking at the possibilities and invests in the future. And the Space Technology Mission Directorate is really here to solve the big technological challenges already in advance, even if we don't even anticipate it yet, and in particular for all the human missions. So I think you have a very important role, and you really have to are investigating the unique environment in order to protect, of course, astronauts, and also see how we actually go further with human missions. And we would very much like to hear from you about your expertise and the activities in your directorate.
Well, thank you, Pascale. It's a pleasure and a privilege. So I really appreciate the opportunity to talk to you, and especially with my esteemed colleagues, as we can talk and we really truly try to execute each day, because we know it's the only way to get there is to explore as one. Now, I call ourselves Space Tech, and our charter is to develop transformative, cross-cutting technologies that enable new missions and discoveries, supporting both human exploration and science, and also promoting commercial space industry and fostering our next generation of explorers. I like to say our strength of our organization is our breadth, as we develop technologies across what we call the technology readiness level scale, from early research to laboratory demonstrations and on to flight demonstrations and implementation. We have over 1,400 active technology projects right now that we're working, over 400 active university partnerships, and over 140 planned flight demonstrations. Our support for human and science exploration can be seen in some of our recent successes at NASA. Just today, there's a spacewalk ongoing to install upgraded solar arrays on the International Space Station. These, what we call rollout solar arrays, are a product of several years of technology development that we directed, starting from small business innovative research, using our suborbital flight opportunities to demonstrate part of the technologies, and then demonstrating the technology in a vacuum chamber. After that, we saw incorporation into a commercial spacecraft industry as now all success. So really a great cradle-to-grave example of how you take a complex technology, develop it, and enable new missions. Also, Thomas mentioned the Mars Perseverance, which continues its amazing discoveries, and we're very proud to have contributed 4 instruments on the mission, including, as he mentioned, the terrain relative navigation, which really helped enable the precise landing in Jezero Crater, and MOXIE, the first demonstration of in situ resource use on another planet. So we creating oxygen from the Mars carbon dioxide atmosphere. If you look at onto Artemis, the gateway will utilize the high-power solar electric propulsion thrusters that we have developed and are qualifying for flight now. We have established a little over a year ago what we call a Lunar Surface Innovation Initiative that helps us advance technologies to support operations on the moon, help establish a sustainable presence while feeding forward to Mars. Thomas's commercial lunar payload services, the landers there, provide to us an invaluable capability to achieve early demonstrations. And we right now have over 25 payloads manifested on CLPS landers so far, and many more in work. In addition, on the lunar surface activities, we're investing in power systems for the lunar surface, leading ultimately to a 10 kilowatt class fission power system. conducting prospecting demonstrations to pull out the moon's natural resources for use in lunar operations, and providing technologies like mini rover scouts and a hopper even to reach all regions of the lunar surface. We like to extensively use prizes, challenges, and crowdsourcing capabilities to engage a broader community than we normally can reach. And that includes ongoing challenges such as Watts on the Moon Challenge, where we recently awarded 7 winning teams based on their proposals to develop technologies to distribute power on the lunar surface, a Break the Ice Challenge, and a Deep Space Food Challenge, which is partnership with Canadian Space Agency. And that seeks novel food production technologies to provide safe, nutritious, and tasty food with minimal waste for long-duration missions. Prizes, challenges, and crowdsourcing are also great tools to enable and enhance science missions to study our home planet and better understand our climate change. Launching soon, we have our laser relay demonstration, which will demonstrate a laser technology for communications that can provide 10 to 100 times better data rates than common radio frequency communication systems that we've worked at very closely with Kathy's organization. And we're preparing to a deep space optical communications capability being flown on one of Thomas's missions, his Psyche mission, later next year. We're also developing several advanced tools enabling transformative science and human exploration missions that include things like partnering with industry to enable long-term cryogenic fluid storage and transfer. We have 4 partnerships with industries to flight demonstrate these technologies, demonstrating a variety of in-space servicing, assembly, and manufacturing techniques with industry, providing building blocks for transformative missions, developing an inflatable heat shield technology that can land very large payloads on Mars, but also apply to Earth to bring back large payloads from space. And we're testing that technology next year in a demonstration in partnership with a U.S. company. And also, ultimately, development of advanced propulsion systems utilizing nuclear fission reactors. So one day in the future, we may enable exploration of Mars and beyond. So our technology investments are aimed to be Explorers One to benefit NASA's missions, our space economy, academia, and the public, everyone here. Thank you.
Thank you very much. It's very interesting and also very important to hear, and also something what we are discussing here, to engage all the different stakeholders and to profit from all the ideas and technology, and hopefully also worldwide. Thank you very much. I have noted down 1,400 projects you are involved in your directorate, so I'm sure we will come back to that. I want now to discuss with Kathy and hear from Kathy from the Human Exploration and Operation Mission Directorate. We would like to know a little bit how we are going to do that, how we are getting actually humans to the moon, and what goals are here to enable even more science and technological development. But also how we expand partnerships that we have right now for the International Space Station into deep space or deeper into space. And as we stand on the surface of the moon, we will look out also to the next goal, which has already been mentioned by the 2 other asset administrators. We are looking for our next goal to Mars, and then the process starts again. Cassie, please.
Oh, thank you again. Like Thomas and Jim said, I really, really appreciate that we've been asked to be able to convey how important it is for us to explore as one. You know, I view within HEO that our job is to enable the platforms that push the technology that Jim's developing, but also provide Thomas the ability to conduct the science that we, humankind, need to be able to understand and push our knowledge base going forward. And so, you know, over the last 50 years, I really appreciated how Thomas talked about the way we're going back to the moon, the things we're learning about the moon are different today. And within human spaceflight, we're taking all of our learning that we've learned after conducting human missions for over 50 years now, and then rolling that forward into how we do our human missions and applying that knowledge going forward. You know, you mentioned the International Space Station. So now 20 years of learning for us in the US and with our international partners. It's been about how to really learn how to live and work and, you know, and operate in space. You know, our Russian colleagues have been doing this for many, many years, and we appreciate all the knowledge that they have worked with us and as a partner over these last 20 years as we've been working together and conducting and learning how to operate on the International Space Station. But we've also learned a lot about how to enable more and more usage of the space station in different areas, for us to be able to buy down our deep exploration risks, for us to be able to have the International Space Station be used by our industry partners, for us to do science in a different way, for us to be able to do science with our sister agencies in the US, but also to collaborate across the world and be able to really be able to have this be an international platform and to have people have access and to bring down the barriers to access to our science initiatives that we're conducting. And we're taking that knowledge and the experience that we've gained from operating this great international platform, and we're not done yet. We're looking to operate it for at least another 10 years, and then taking that forward to us establishing our orbiting platform around the moon, our gateway system, that we again are going with our international partners and conducting it and beginning to lay the framework for our next round of international exploration activities, and once again doing it with our other mission directorates here within NASA. You know, Thomas, already at the very beginning when we were talking and planning about Gateway, we were talking about what's the science that we already want to be able to do on Gateway, and beginning to put the instruments and working with our international partners on instruments that will be flying on Gateway. But as Thomas talked about, and as Jim was talking about all the different technologies that have helped us, we're planning a very tough mission to also be conducting on the lunar surface. And we're hoping to do that also with our international partners. And we don't have all the technologies figured out like Jim's talking about. So we have to work collaboratively together for us to start beginning to solve the challenges that will need to be solved for us to be able to do these lunar surface activities and begin operations between our gateway system and our human landing system that will be taking people to the surface of the moon. All this is about how do you set up the right platforms so that when we get the key capabilities in place on the moon, which include having the orbiting platform, having human landing systems, working with our international partners on cargo landers, working with our international partners on potential other habitat systems, working with our international partners and our commercial partners on other landing systems and rovers and different capabilities. All this provides the opportunity for continued international partnership and working together and in continued integration and collaboration on the surface of the moon to be able to then go conduct the science or prove out the different technologies that we need to get us be able to go to the next step. I will tell you within HEO, we are doing this to get us prepared for the next mission. And our next mission is to one day, like Thomas talked about, one day follow his robot, follow Perseverance, for us to one day be able to put human boots on Mars. But one of the key attributes of going to the moon is that we'll be learning how to be able to conduct aggregation, be able to live on a different area, to be able to do surface operations, to be able to do science. All those are things that get us ready for this next phase of exploration. And just like we had to learn from space station, and which has taught us so much about how to live and work in space, we also need to live and work around and on the moon and learn that lesson for us to really be able to buy down the key aspects and the risk in the areas that we don't have figured out yet. Jim's going to help us figure out some of these things, like being able to do in situ resource utilization, being able to really conduct the dust mitigation activities, being able to solve the propulsion challenges that we have and the power challenges that we're going to have, being able to solve the nutritional challenges that we're having, and the physical and psychological challenges we're going to have, to be able to make sure that as we prove out those things, as we fly around the moon and on the moon, along doing Thomas's science and geological research and testing out all these step, which is moving on to Mars. So we always have the long view there, but we know that for us to get there, it's going to be a huge challenge. It's going to be a huge challenge for us in the international community to be once again going back to the moon, and this time staying on the moon. It's going to be a huge challenge for us. But the reason we do this is because it hurt. And the reason we do it together, this is for us as a world to accomplish. And so we explore as one, because we need to explore as one. These are the ties that bind us. We're all here on this one planet, like Thomas talked about, and this is about us moving to the next phase of exploration together. So thank you very much for having us, and I look forward to the questions.
Thank you very much, Cassian. These are really wonderful words which resonate very well here at an international space exploration conference, a topic, of course, which is discussed a lot. I thank you very much, because the goal of returning or bringing humans to the moon is really such a complex endeavor and requires a very good coordination. And you made a really, really important case for that and how you are trying to achieve it. I would like now to come to the question of the audience. They are quite numerous. We will probably not be able to go through all of them. But I'm also not assigning a person, so I think it's probably so that you both or all three would like to answer. But I let you choose who answers. The first question would be, what are the biggest technological challenges to achieve a sustainable, permanent human presence on the moon? Not an easy question.
Yeah, I guess I'll start. But there are, as you said, a number of things to really establish that, and we do view the moon as a critical next step and a springboard for us, if you will, going forward. A lot of the challenges ends up being just how do we learn to operate and live in a space that's much more confined than what we know on an International Space Station, and much farther away. So we need to learn to operate much more autonomously from the Earth, and that especially would go into Mars. It's the challenges in and of themselves are very severe in their own rights. The moon is a very interesting place. It can get fairly warm at times, but as it through the lunar night, it becomes an extremely cold environment. That's one of the coldest places in the universe. And so just having the technologies that can operate and thrive in that sort of environment, where we don't always have a ready power source, or as reliable is one of the critical things as we go forward. As you look on the moon, it's kind of like establishing a beachhead, if you will, or a front at anywhere on Earth. The first thing you need are the basic utilities in order to operate, and so things like establishing power systems and having them mobile as you want to try to transport around the surface is a critical area. Understanding the crew's needs and the crew's health in an environment like this with radiation exposure and other things is another critical aspect to it. And then just the very complex interaction and interrelationships between the various vehicles and capabilities that are internationally provided. So there's a very complex activity to just make sure that the interfaces and operability standards are in place. That sounds simple, but is very challenging to have that work so that you can operate as an integrated system. And I'll turn it over to one of my other colleagues.
Yeah, I think like Jim talked about, it's like taking
Go to the next question. Good, then I go to the next question. I think you mentioned something very important. It is about interfaces. Also, we have talked a lot about standards here at the conference. In one go, we want to exploit worldwide expertise because no nation has all the technologies ready. On the other side, we will really, we need to have interfaces, which makes everything very complex. So I think this was an important message also. I would like to come to there are very interesting specific questions. And I think I would like to ask one question from the audience. How can NASA, or how does NASA benefit from the collaboration with the private sector and with private companies?
Why don't I start with this one? Well, why don't you, Kathy? Go ahead, Kathy.
Oh, can you guys hear me?
Yes. Perfect.
Okay, excellent. Okay. Yeah, I think that one of the biggest things is we view it a little bit as a multiplier, right? We can start when we start an initiative, and often Jim does this. He starts an initiative across the board, and then when we can invest in kind of the startup of that. Then when you have commercial companies out there that can take that and then use that and expand on that, and even then potentially have ways to be able to innovate it and be able to use it in other applications. That's what we feel the value, to me, has been the value of doing these initiatives with our commercial partners, because it allows us to have our initial push towards development of the technology and capability, but then they're allowed to take it and amplify it, or even share it potentially within other applications. And so I think one of the strongest kind of new kind of tech transfer capabilities that we've been able to start doing is have us kind of solve the initial problem. And because we're the government, we can give that solution to entities out there and then let them develop unique solutions to that. And what that does is gives us multiple options then, or opportunities to be able to use that capability in the future, but then also gives that as a capability for other companies or folks to be able to use too. So we really view these new relationships and the new way of working together as a way to really multiply and kind of expand the initial capabilities that we've developed.
Thank you very much. I have a question for Thomas Zubergen. We have just right now, and also discussing here at this conference several upcoming robotic missions to explore the moon. They're coming from, of course, India, Japan, Russia, China, but also, of course, from NASA's Commercial Lunar Payload Service program. And how well is it coordinated that all the scientific and also, I would say, technology data are actually really feeding back into the big missions? Is there coordination, in particular from the science side, to collect all this data and to use them in order to go forward? As an example, of course, the lunar sample return mission of Chang'e 5.
So thanks for the question. Of course, you know that the natural way that science is done is internationally, and that's not new or different or special for science, whether it's in the moon, whether it's relative to lunar science, whether it's to relative to science, elementary particle science, solid state physics, whatever the science is. The natural way of doing that is international. We do have the tools to do that. Our international communities are working together in a variety of levels, so I'm very excited, for example, to read publications from that come from the far side landing of the Chinese lander that have U.S. co-authors on it. I read one of those papers. I thought it was just fabulous how it was written. So that's the natural way for us to work. I think that where we can make more progress, Pascal, is really on both the technological side. You already talked about the interfaces, but also on the alignment side overall, right? Kind of how do we make sure that as we build kind of national missions, so to say, whether it's from India, from China, from our colleagues at Russia, from so many other locations, JAXA, the US, how do we make sure that at the end, kind of we look at it comprehensively from the top down, and not only from the point of view of technological consistency, but also from the point of view of really, are we together addressing the best science? I think that's one of the discussions we're just learning how to do. We have some kind of communities in place, and we've actively invited international partners to join us in this. Pascal, you're really deeply aware of what they are. Sometimes through the academies, but sometimes also through, kind of community-based kind of organizations that are doing that. I do believe as we go forward and make more progress in lunar science, that kind of coordination is something we have to figure out kind of at the top level, see great partnerships, creating connections at all levels. And I think that includes, of course, the science level, which I started with, which is, I think, working fine. People are talking to each other just like we expect them to, but also kind of at the high-level programmatic level where our alignment can really provide more. So good things are happening, but we can do better.
Thank you very much, Thomas. All of you have been mentioning and discussed the future goal, going further on to Mars. And we have an interesting question here because we have really a very, very diverse question. Is NASA able to produce food on Mars? And if not, how do you actually plan to make astronauts stay there for a while? So I think this is still a future idea, but I think the idea of how we actually develop technologies for producing food for astronauts and long-term duration flights, I think is quite an interesting subject.
Yeah, and I think it's one of those things that can also apply here on Earth, right? I tell people a lot that when we're trying to find these hard things, these are the kinds of things that we also can think about then applying to us applying here on. And there's places on Earth that it's really, really a tough environment also to be growing food. But, Jim talked about one of our challenges that we have that his team is working with folks in our HEO group, and we're working a kind of a world food challenge to help us go figure out how do we ensure that we have fresh fruits and nutritional items that we're taking and learning how to be able to keep food and nutritional values as you're going through these long journeys. I will tell you, we don't have it solved yet, and Jim can add more to this, but I think one of the reasons why we talk about having to solve a problem that seems really hard right now, and we probably have many, many years to be able to solve it, is so that we will push the level of technology through us solving this problem. I feel very strongly that the reason we do these hard missions is because we don't know yet how to do it. And we're going to go try a few things and do some fits and starts over the next 15, 20 years. And through that, it will probably push our ability to be able to feed people here on Earth. But Jim, why don't you jump in a little bit on the different things that we've been doing?
I'll add to it. The Deep Space Food Challenge that Kathy mentioned is one that we have initiated now, and it is international. And we're looking for, this is a ripe area for us to look, very broadly for ideas. A couple other things we're doing is we're using the International Space Station actually for long-term efficacy of ensuring the food storage capability and rehydration and maintaining its nutritional and taste value. And so we actually have a 5-year program going on where every 6 months we're activating one of our samples and analyzing it, bringing it back to Earth to analyze and stuff to see. So we really understand how long the food can stay in a storage space. On top of that, we have established a research institute. It's led by University of California, Berkeley, and with a number of other universities working. And they're looking at a number of ways of using manufacturing and biogrowth. And that's actually, interestingly enough, is ways that you can, what are the best lighting conditions that you can have for the optimum plants? What are the better plants to grow? And even actually, how do we even potentially grow pharmaceuticals in the food itself? And so there's a lot of exciting activities that we have going on. But we're at the introductory stages of something that would be really to scale, or anything that would be for a Mars mission. But by a combination of the things we're working on, we have a good start on some of those activities.
Yeah, thank you very much for your combined answer. I have also a question concerning artificial intelligence, because we are talking about new technologies. So artificial intelligence will be crucial for autonomy in deep space. And of course, also the use of artificial intelligence and robotics for space exploration has many applications. And we were wondering if you could talk a little bit about some key areas where artificial, you talked about 1,400 projects, but about the key areas where artificial intelligence can significantly augment space exploration.
Okay, I'll start, and then maybe Thomas will want to add in, because he's very extensive in this area. But we're looking at ways, one of the critical aspects of being able to grow from operating on the moon and then on to Mars is you have to be able to operate autonomously, and as we get further and further from Earth. And so we have a number of activities looking at how can we design our systems for autonomous, how can they be fail-safe, how can we make sure that we are intelligent and not have to use all our volume for sparing, but have very intelligent systems that fail smartly. And we have a couple of research institutes established in this area too, that looks at deep space hab type applications, and then operations on the lunar surface are areas where in order to, and in the lunar environment, and Thomas in the Earth environment as well, you can gain a lot troves of data, and how you process that as you go forward is is a critical part of that. And Thomas, I guess I'll let you talk because you do very much in this area.
Yeah, I really appreciate it. Look, Pascal, I believe that the AI ML kind of revolution that we're launching into, and Jim talked to us just now about his investments, but it's something that is often underestimated. I actually believe what we've seen in the last 5 years is a rapid evolution of AI and ML techniques in a way that can really be transformative for entire systems, how we build them, how we test them, how we run them, but equally importantly, how we analyze the data that they're collecting. I want to tell you that just last night, on Mars, we ran kind of the rover for the first time in an auto nav, an entirely kind of much more disconnected way of running the rover from what we've done in the past. Very much taking advantage of novel techniques that are available. Kind of how we're landing, how we're operating on surfaces is enabling robots to be in support of humans once they're there, and actually be partners in a way that are less deterministic than current systems that we have. Where the biggest breakthroughs, I think, are happening, and frankly, where we have a lot of need, is frankly looking at data that are, of course, of engineering systems, finding unusual things that help us identify challenges that are in the future, address them before we can see a leak or an issue that we have to address all of a sudden. But it's also, from the science perspective, about kind of combining and analyzing data in ways we haven't used it. The most important place to do that, frankly, is on Earth science, where we have, terabytes of data that are collected by a variety of international satellites that are providing, forecasts at a small time frame, but also are providing kind of data that help us understand kind of the slower but perhaps more important changes that are happening to our planet as a whole. So it's those techniques that I believe are absolutely enabling to do this science. It's just the way I used to advise PhD students, Pascal, with use these data and find the interesting period and look at it. It's just not the scalable way of doing this. So I just really want to stress the point Jim made, which is, especially for those of you who are kind of early in your career, watch that one. This is one of those pivotal changes I think that's happening now. I would argue, kind of in the history of my career, kind of 2 full starts in that, where people kind of perhaps over time, lots of important things happen, but it did not have the transformative power that I believe this particular transition that we're in will have in the next few years. Pascal, back to you.
Thank you very much, both to you. I want to make a very, very short summary because we have only a few minutes left. So what we actually take home from this panel is that it is really crucial to work across interdisciplinary boundaries and be really well coordinated, and that will support the success of really complex space endeavors. I think foresight is really important. The growing knowledge of planetary processes has to be continuously used and integrated, as well as, of course, advanced technologies. I think we have heard that from all the 3 panel members, and of course the perspective of international cooperation and where we can exploit worldwide expertise. I wanted to give you probably a 1-minute pitch at the end, each of you, probably starting with Kathy, to this topic, a last message to the audience here and online from you in really very short, if that's possible. I would appreciate it.
Oh, no problem. So, what's really important is that we're going to be learning things, and the problems we have today will be solved by the solutions we are searching for tomorrow. And us doing it together is going to mean that we're going to be able to solve those problems even faster. And us having a joint goal and initiative and push to view this as a goal for mankind, I think underscores why we need to explore as one. And I'm very grateful that I have the partnerships within NASA and with our international partners and with our industry partners to be able to go and push forward with the initiatives we have, because we are exploring and we're doing it together. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Thomas.
We explore as one because we can do more and we can do better when we work together. And for us, we need to learn how to do this. It's something that I'm personally very passionate about. I'm looking at this, as I said, through the eyes of science. It makes absolute sense to me. I want to flag that learning how to explore as one is a very tough challenge. We need to learn how to listen to other communities in ways and other partners in ways that we have not listened to them before. It requires humility to recognize that solutions may occur in places that we did not expect them to occur. But that job is very much worth it, because together we can do so much more, and we can do the kind of important work that we all are passionate about, just like Kathy said.
Thank you, Thomas. And James?
Yes, thank you. I really am. It was a pleasure being here today. But what I would say is, whenever you have a complex problem that you have to solve, it always is best solved with a diverse perspective and coming at it from a variety of angles. And the more we adopt that, the more creative we get in our solutions and the more effective. International cooperation is just one of the best ways, absolutely, to get that broad perspective and trying things out. And what we'll find is that, and we can work things in parallel and work things in sequence with each other. But we'll find is we're much more effective when we do so. And then it also then pays huge dividends back here on Earth. None of our dollars are spent in space. They're all spent here on Earth. And for international relations around the world, it's nothing is better than a broad community effort in an international space exploration.
Thank you. I want to thank the 3 NASA Associate Administrators for their time and wisdom. I also want to thank the audience here in person in St. Petersburg at the Global Exploration Conference 2021. And of course, also our audience online, and for all your questions. And I think it seems we have a bright future for space exploration ahead. Thank you very, very much.
Thank you, Pascal, and thanks to our distinguished speakers for the exciting discussions. We will move on with our program to our last GNF session today, and I would like to ask the speakers and moderator of the next session to come on stage already, so that we can start as quickly as possible. Stay with us, give us just a few minutes.